Hi, everyone. My name's Zachary Snyderman. I'm Mashable's Social Good Associate Editor, and it's my pleasure to introduce Peter Sims. Peter Sims is the best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur who recently wrote a book arguing that major breakthrough ideas emerge from small discoveries. Mr. Sims is talking today about inventing the future with little bets, new ways to solve social problems. Please welcome Mr. Sims to the stage.
Thank you so much. Is this it right here? Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, and especially to be following somebody like Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who has been a hero for many years. So here we go. Let me just begin by talking about Muhammad Yunus for a minute. How many of you know that he was an economist when some hands? A lot. Wonderful. So in 1972, Muhammad Yunus was an economist who was living in Bangladesh, and he was overwhelmed by this problem that he saw, which was that many, many people were streaming into the streets dying of poverty. And they were coming in from the countryside, and none of the economic theories he had learned, he was passionate about poverty, and none of these theories were able to solve this problem. And so what he did was he went out into the countryside. He went to a town called Jobra, which was outside of this university, about an hour outside, and he spent a lot of time going house to house, talking with people like this woman, who were small business owners. They were making, in many cases, baskets. They were working with bamboo, and they were being charged very high rates for things like bamboo, as Professor Yunus found when he went house to house to house and had conversations with these people, one after the other after the other. And what he was able to do by getting away from the bird's eye view, the economist's bird's eye view looking down at the world, and moved into the worm's eye view of getting into the lives of these people, was that he was able to really develop an empathy for what the problems were. And he learned, in talking with a woman named Sophia, that her problem was that she was charged so much for the bamboo that she was unable to sell it for enough of a margin to make profit. And that was the starting point for what would become the Grameen Bank. So let me just describe what problem I'm trying to target with this book, Little Bets, and this way of thinking. This is an actual slide of the Afghanistan strategy last year, and it was prepared by the staff to General Stanley McChrystal. And when the staff brought this to McChrystal, this PowerPoint slide, he said, when we understand that slide, we will have won the war, which is pretty well put. And it says it all, because we think that we can put everything into a PowerPoint. We think that we can put everything into a plan, but the world is far too complex. Obviously, we're living in a time when we have Afghanistan, we have a world that's rapidly changing, we have so much uncertainty that we don't even know what the problems are before we go in. And so, as Jeff Bezos says, you can't put into a spreadsheet how people are going to respond to a new idea. So, what's the problem? Why is this happening? Well, we're given an educational system where around the world, I was just talking backstage with Tony Bates of Skype, who's up next and who's got a lot of insight and cool ideas around combating this problem, but we're trained to prevent making errors, right? I mean, we can't make mistakes. This is something that's just ingrained in us, this rigid testing system, and it's from a young age. All of us are influenced by that. So we get older, and we think that we need to have the answer before we do anything new. But none of these companies started with a big idea. I mean, Google began with a library search project where Sergey and Larry were working as PhD students at Stanford. They were working to try to prioritize library search in the Stanford Library. Twitter, as many of you know, began inside Odeo, which was a podcasting company where nobody was passionate about podcasting. So Evan Williams said, does anybody have any ideas? Jack Dorsey's engineer, I have an idea. How about short messaging? Okay, you get 2 weeks, work on that. Got another 6 months because Biz Stone was interested, and Evan gave him the chance. Twitter became Twitter. Pixar started as a hardware company. So this idea that we have big ideas is just bogus. Howard Schultz says when he was inventing Starbucks, he had to make a lot of mistakes. That's how he discovered what was going to work and what wasn't. The first Starbucks had no chairs. This is Howard Schultz. So we have to move from this planning mentality to an experimental mentality. And we have to think in terms of what we can afford to lose rather than what we can expect to gain in a plan. So little bets are this. Figure out what you don't know in the unknown, find out problems and opportunities, and then once you've found the problems, bet big and go for it. But make sure you're solving the right problem first. Make sure you're doing what Dr. Yunus did first. And it takes a lot of work. It's not easy. You have to make mistakes. Now, why is this important? This is my Uncle Joe, and he's a logger and one of the best men I know. This is the world we're living in right now, where his life has changed dramatically. He wakes every morning at 2 a.m. This is 2:18. I rode with him for a day this summer, and there he is climbing in his truck at 2:15 a.m. What are you doing at 2:15 a.m.? What am I doing? I'm in bed for a long time to come. And he's 62 years old, back-breaking labor. This is a part of our economy here in the United States that's struggling tremendously and needs people like you to be helping to figure out how we're going to reinvent this economy. And he doesn't understand why Wall Street gets to have derivatives being sold on logs, on wood, when he's working harder and harder and having less and less livelihood to go. But he's an awesome guy. I would love if you can meet him sometime. He says he's got the best corner office in the world. And he's optimistic. And one of the reasons he's optimistic is because he says, you know what? He says, we've forgotten who's the boss in this country. The citizen's the boss. You're the boss. We're all the boss. So now, what are we going to do? You got to act, right? You got to do something. That's my challenge to you today. Do something. Because we're living in a time of crisis that is as significant and severe as any we've lived through. We need leadership. And we're not getting it from Washington. We're not getting it from a lot of the people who are supposed to be leaders. But you and this generation is different, This is like, when I'm around people 35, it's like, this is where it's all happening right now. This is where social entrepreneurship and corporate and all these things are coming together in new and interesting ways with social media, and it's pretty amazing. And so every one of you has a voice. And I challenge you to use that voice. Here's another idea that you can look at, and that's called Fuse Corps. This is a program that's like the White House Fellowship meets Teach for America. It's just launching now. It'll be open applications from October 1 on. You'll be working on projects to report for mayors and governors and their senior staff. Here are the details, www.fusecorps.com or the hashtag @FuseCorps. So, these are the mayors you work for. Kevin Johnson, kids. The best way to predict the future is to invent it, says Alan Kay, the technologist. It begins with a little bet. Start small. What will yours be? Thank you so much.